Speaking of being the best, Aaron is so fat and cocky and just putting so much into Kentucky getting dominated by the Georgia Bulldogs 51-13. I don't know, dude. I'm like, okay, sure, when I see this. Carson Beck played great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Carson Beck looks really good. Brock Bowers is unstoppable as ever. What I'm saying is this doesn't really change that much of how I view Georgia. I still believe they are clearly the best team in the SEC. We have said that all season long. And like I continue to say, I don't think Georgia's going to fail until like the playoffs, right? But I damn sure knew Mark Stoops wasn't about to go in there and run power and counter in Athens and get a victory. Like this was an awful style matchup here between the Cats and the Dogs.
No, it was. I get that, but a couple questions were answered for a lot of Dogs fans. Like one, can the defensive line in that front seven at least man up and perform better? And I thought they would. Like we talked about last week on our shows. I get that, T. I get that, but still, it needed to be seen. Neither is Auburn, but Auburn ran for 200 plus yards against Georgia, and it was a very different schematics of how they did it with a lot more triple option, which is harder to defend than your traditional. It was not a good matchup for Kentucky, yes, but you still answered the question of how really dominant can this defense be, and they were suffocating. And then you flip it over to the other side, and finally they put the ball into Carson's hands.
That was big.
after 5 weeks of just easing Carson into the season. And I was on the field before the game, and I went up to Bobo, and we're talking. And I was like, man, like I know you're getting a lot of shit, and Carson's getting a lot of shit, but I think you guys are kicking ass right now. I think y'all are doing a really good job. I've loved it. And he said, man, it's just wait for it. He's like,
I see. So that's how you got the sty, all that brown on your nose.
Yes.
All that brown on your nose from Bobo's asshole.
Of course, Bobo's my boy. Yeah,
so what? I'm sorry. I had to get that trigger. What did he say when you told him that?
He said just wait for the night, and he reiterated how impressed he's been with Carson. Bobo was really honest with me. Like Bobo will tell me if he's not like he'd be like, there's still some things we're working on. He's like, he looked at me and said, no, like this kid is doing everything that I want him to do, and it's been really impressive. Like that was a sign of him telling me somewhat of like I trust him. We trust him as a staff to put the ball in his hands and let him go win football games for us. And like last night was, and Kentucky secondary was the big question mark. Like they told us that in the offseason, and it hasn't been really exposed yet. And that was kind of the first night that we really got to see like, okay, yeah, they got some major issues on that side. But, and I don't know how much of the game you watched, but the throws that Carson was making, like that first deep cross he threw for a touchdown,
it was
unbelievable.
It's as good a throw as quarterback can make.
He
looks like a 5-star giant, like that you've been saying he's good. It's the first time, to your point, it's the first time all season long where they trust him, but it's also the first time all season long where he has looked like the guy that you had me put a very big preseason bet on to win Heisman.
Not you did that little baby bet.
No, that was slightly more a little baby bet, but
But I mean, listen, if they would have let him cook like this for the entire season, like who knows? But he's special, man, and I think you're going to see a guy that continues to gain more and more confidence, especially after the past 2 weeks. Like to do what he did in the second half versus Auburn on the road, then to flip it around and have the game he just had versus Kentucky. I know you say that this doesn't change your mind about Georgia. It does a little bit for me. Like I think we had him at 4 or 5 in our poll last week. Like I think now. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. Now it makes me kind of get back to the mindset we had before in the preseason. It really is, in my mind, Georgia and Michigan now. Back again. Like we've been fumbling and bumbling, and we really weren't sure how good these teams really were because of their schedules beginning of the season. But now we're seeing them kind of take that next evolution for both teams of really dominating the way we know they can dominate and flexing in certain areas that we had questions about. And if Carson looks like this, and we know the defense is going to be still, even if they're not as good as they were the past 2 years, still going to be a top 10, top 15 defense when it's all said and done, it's going to be hard to beat the Dogs this season.
Yeah, look, I think that I think in terms of national championship hopes, yes, it's still Georgia, Michigan, probably. But that in terms of resume, like if we're doing our top 10, this is a good win, but let's not make too much of it. Like this Kentucky team's they
finally dominated.
No,
like,
yeah, I know.
The way in which they won.
Yes, but Michigan's dominated every game, and they played teams that are equivalent to Kentucky in the Big Ten. So it's like, it's just like, I don't know. It's I'm still look. I mean, what are we so impressed with Kentucky about? They beat Florida. Yeah, like that's it.
But I think before that they played like the worst schedule in the manner in which they win some of these games too. Like for Michigan example, like to dominate Nebraska and a team that was actually pretty darn good. Like we've talked about Nebraska, their ability to stop the run.
Hey, told you they were through that on Friday, baby. Let's go.
I mean, Nebraska may still have a chance on that side. We'll see. But then they go and turn around and beat Minnesota 52-10. Like Michigan is it's not only the and that's why we kind of hesitate on Oklahoma a little bit last week. Still kind of favored Texas. It was like, yeah, Oklahoma hasn't played necessarily a tough schedule, but they've looked the part in all of those games.
Yeah.
Like they've done what they needed to do to say this isn't just a fluky wins or we're like, no, we're kicking ass.
So Georgia's done that once this season. Michigan's done it every week.